Hello and a very warm welcome to this week's Geraldine Jamieson interview. Well, I'm delighted to welcome my very famous guest today, Britain's most popular soprano, regularly appearing in both opera and in concert on television and CD. She has won both critical acclaim and the affection of many, many fans, plus music lovers. As a recording artist, she has many solo CDs to her credit, Gramophone Award for Best-Selling Classical Artist of the Year, received both silver and gold discs aplenty, and also a featured artist on the platinum-selling Perfect Day single released by the BBC in aid of children in need. Well, Lesley Garrett, CB, very warm welcome indeed to the programme.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Geraldine.
Well, it's lovely to have you here indeed. Now, I have caught up with you actually backstage at the Villa Marina just before curtain up, when in company with the National Symphony Orchestra you're about to perform a semi-classical concert. But I think I'm right here that this is not your first performance on the island, is it?
No, I've been lucky enough to be here a couple of times before actually. I think the last time was with the Halle Orchestra and Mark Elder. Mark's an old friend and my association with the orchestra goes back a long way. And I think I've also done a solo concert here on my own right as well a year or two before that. So I think I might be justifiably described as a regular here at the Villa Marina, which I'm very thrilled by. It's looking lovely actually.
It's fantastic.
So now it's been all painted up and refurbished.
Indeed.
Very proud you must be of it.
Well, we are. It's cost us all a lot of money, but I think it's well worth it.
Absolutely, from my point of view.
In the long run. But getting to you yourself, you launched really your very successful singing career after you won the Kathleen Ferrier Prize. That was back in 1979.
Gosh, you are well informed. Yes, it was. It's a long time ago, and that was the start of everything, really.
Must have opened many doors for you.
It did. It first of all got me into the National Opera Studio, because that was my last year, at the end of my last year at the Royal Academy of Music, and then I was lucky enough to be one of only 10 people from the whole country who got into the National Opera Studio. And at the end of that year, I was lucky enough to make my debut at the Wexford Festival Opera in a wonderful Handel opera called Orlando. I played the role of Dorinda, which I think at the time I remember thinking, this has actually been written for me by God, this role, because it just so suited me. And that was in 1980, so I'm actually coming up for my 30th anniversary in the business, which I honestly can't believe how lucky I am that I'm still here and still with, as you were describing, this incredibly versatile and diverse career that just
But it just shows you, I mean, the Wexford Festival is still going strong, the Welsh National Opera, Opera North,
yes,
Glyndebourne, of course, Festival Opera. All these really helped you, but it must have been when you joined the English National Opera in 1984, you must have felt, well, I've made it now.
Yes, you're absolutely right. After Wexford, as you say, just about every company in Britain gave me some work, which was just heaven. I couldn't believe my luck, but it wasn't until I arrived at ENO in 84 that I just felt I'd come home. It's such an important British company, and I felt when I got there that there was something about their philosophy, the idea of reaching as many people as they possibly could with the very best quality music that appealed directly to me. And of course it was the Colosseum was the place that I visited when I was 16 with my auntie when I came to London for the first time, and saw Madame Butterfly, which was the first opera I'd ever seen, and was swept away by, well, just the spectacle of it and the intensity of it, especially when Cho-Cho sang Un Bel Dì, One Fine Day, which of course I'd sung around the piano with my dad for years, because that's how I learnt all my music.
I was going to say, when did you know that you had a voice?
Well, I'd always known I'd had a voice. I just didn't know whether it was a voice of any consequence, I suppose, because my whole family were, and still are, extremely musical in a very amateur way. Having said that, my granddad Wall, my mum's father, was a professional pianist. He was a classical pianist, although he was the eldest of a family of miners. His father, my great-grandfather, taught him to play out of a book he got from the library, because his chest was too weak for him to go down the pits. So he was put to the piano, as we say. And
you're a northern lass, aren't you?
Yes, South Yorkshire. Yes, I was born in Thorne near Doncaster, and my grandfather was in Sheffield and Wath. And he became a very fine pianist, had his own orchestra, played concerts, played for the silent movies. And of course then I had a wonderful influence on my father's side too, because my grandfather on my dad's side had a dance band called Arthur Garrett and the Blackout Boys. So I sort of had the entertainment side from Grandad Garrett and the classical side from Grandad Wall, and I suppose in a way that's maintained my career in a sense, in terms of repertoire, because as you were saying, my concerts tend to be a mixture of classical and non-classical material.
Do you do that deliberately?
Very much so. The first half of the programme I always make completely classical, and that's just because I love classical music, and I know the audiences will love classical music and opera. It's just that some people, and these are the people, to be honest, I'm interested in getting to, some people are just not confident about that. They've either not had it in their backgrounds, as I did, or they've not had it at school, or it's just somehow missed them. And I just know as soon as they hear this music that they will be captivated by it.
Well, talking about opera then, I mean, the particular roles, is it comic or serious ones that appeal to you most?
Well, the comic roles are the ones I find most easy, if I'm honest. They're the most instantly appealing. I'm drawn to comedy. But the serious roles, and there have probably been fewer of those, are the ones that give me most satisfaction, because I have to dig deeper for those. I have to find more within myself, and for that reason I think they probably do give me more satisfaction, and I've loved every single role I've ever performed.
Well, despite all this wonderful piano musical background, really, up in South Yorkshire.
But there was so much singing.
Opera,
there was
but
so much
surely
singing.
not opera.
Oh, everything. We sang absolutely everything. My mum was always very interested, for instance, in sacred music. So I had a great background in the wonderful oratorios that everybody seemed to sing when I was a child. But opera, I think, was a great love of my father's, and we would just sing all the big arias around the piano. But we'd mix it up with everything else, Geraldine. That was the lovely thing. We'd sing show music, we'd sing film music, we'd sing, a hymn, we'd sing, a piece of sacred music, a piece of opera. It was just great music. And that's why I think when I do my gala programmes, which, as you say, is what I'm here at the Villa Marina to do, the second part of the programme is always non-classical, and that's when I mix it up, I let my hair down. And I often find, particularly in film music, that there's a great relationship between opera and film music, because they're both drama underpinned by music, if you like. You can't imagine a good film score without a good film without a good score, can you?
Well, there was music from the album, your album So Deep As the Night was actually made into a film, wasn't it?
Yes.
Lesley Garrett, Desert Dreams.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Gosh, you have done your homework.
Well, this must have pleased you no end.
That was one of the high points of my career. We went out to Spain, to that wonderful area in the southeast where they made all the spaghetti movies, spaghetti westerns, this fabulous desert area. And we basically wove this music, which was pretty much classical. We wove it into the landscape and made a lovely, quite surreal film about this music in this landscape, as if we were a travelling group of performers who just happened to fetch up in this amazing terrain, and I had incredible dressers, huge, great, fabulous costumes to sing Dido's Lament in, and then just everything you can imagine. It was just heaven.
Because they call you the small soprano, don't you? You're so neat, but you go in and out in the right places. Fantastic.
That's for the benefit of the listeners. Yes. No, I've never been very big, to be honest, but that's why I work so hard at my technique, though, because I do want to sing all the music that I perform completely, authentically and properly, and you have to have the right technique for that, whatever that piece of music is. That's the reason why I don't sing jazz, because I don't think I have the right technique for that, and some opera singers just decide they'll sing jazz, and it rather irritates me, because I think jazz is an art form of its own that you need to grow up with and study and understand, and I've not had that advantage. But lots of other genres of music are absolutely in my blood, but I have to work at my technique all the time in order to be able to sing opera on the one hand, and then fabulous show music on the other.
What a professional you are, because so very few, I think, would fail in that capacity. Now I want to come to some of your major television appearances, which have included some of the really diverse guests that you have dealt with, such as the wonderful American Renee Fleming,
yes,
Lady Smith, Black Bombazzo, and not forgetting Michel Legrand, and of course Elaine Page, who's actually been a guest on this programme.
Yes, I love the diversity of the people that I've been able to perform with, because they teach me something. Every single person I sing with, I learn something from, and Renee is just one of the greatest sopranos I think I've ever had the good fortune to listen to, let alone perform with. And
now, she is a statuesque lady, isn't she?
She's statuesque and absolutely beautiful, and sings astonishingly, as does Elaine Page. You know, completely different repertoire, but equally a diva. And I mean that in the very best sense.
And minute.
And tiny, like myself. I actually felt quite Amazonian next to Elaine, because she really, really is Piaf-sized and absolutely gorgeous. But you're right, the diversity isn't never ending. I mean, one of the most interesting people I ever performed with was Paul O'Grady, Lily Savage, when I persuaded him to do the cat duet with me. I said, have you ever heard of Rossini? He said, oh, go on then. I said, come on, have a go at this. And we had a wonderful time in the Albert Hall doing that. And I was very much the Ernie Wise to his Eric Morecambe, I can tell you. I'm the one with the short, fat hair and legs, you see.
You are listening to the Geraldine Jamieson interview, and my guest today is the nation's favourite classical soprano, Lesley Garrett, CBE. Garrett is actually a Manx name. Do you have relations over here?
Is it really? I didn't know that.
I looked it up in the telephone directory. There's at least 2 pages of Garrett's.
No, well, perhaps I do. Perhaps we should have dug a bit deeper when I did Who Do You Think You Are? Perhaps I have got some relatives here. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Do write in if you think you're related.
But talk about being very agile and so on. You were actually, I'm going to say amazingly, because I think it was a very daring thing to do. I mean, you could have injured yourself and so on, but you were invited to be one of the celebrity dancers on the BBC One hit show Strictly Come Dancing, and together with your professional dance partner Anton Dubek, you reached the semi-finals of the competition.
Oh, so excited.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I know it was the very first series. We were all inventing it as we went along. The excitement was extraordinary. I know it's evolved now into this kind of world force, hasn't it? Everywhere I go when I'm travelling, I turn the TV on and there's Dancing with the Stars, I think they call it in other countries, who haven't had our come dancing background. But I'm very proud of the fact that I was a little tiny moment in the beginning of all of that, but to get to the semi-final was an enormous
Did you have
thrill.
any mishaps?
Oh, lots along the way. Do you know, I have to say that programme was life-changing because I'd never before realised I was competitive, for one thing. I'd always just ploughed my own furrow, gone my own way, and suddenly I'm in competition with other dancers, and I really wanted to do well. I wanted to do well for well, for older women too, because I wasn't one of the kids that were on it, and there were lots of, young, nubile, fabulous things.
But they would know nothing about ballroom dancing.
Well, that was the advantage I had, I suppose, although I'd never studied it, but I'd always loved it. And I guess I'd done it at school a bit, but I got so fit and so slim. I can't advocate it enough to people who are, thinking of taking it up. It's a great thing to do. And Anton Jabek is heaven on a stick.
Well, if you get the right partner, of course, it just makes it all so...
Well, we're still dancing together, actually. We do sometimes perform together. Sometimes he and Erin come and dance in my concerts, and I get to sing for them, and then I sing and I dance with Anton, and it's the best fun.
Now, another unique occasion, you performed the very last Abide With Me at the 2000 FA Cup final. That was prior, of course, to the closure of Wembley Stadium. Tell us about that. That must have been a really unique occasion.
Fantastic. That was just so exciting. I can't tell you. Because it was so poignant. It was the first time I'd ever sung in Wembley Stadium, so you can imagine how nervous I was. I was doing it for the NSPCC Full Stop campaign as well. We dedicated the whole of that day to the campaign. So I was wearing their special T-shirt and walking onto the hallowed turf, which they don't allow you to rehearse on there. They guard it almost sacredly. And you have to stand to the side to rehearse, and you don't actually get to stand in the middle and
what do they think you're going to do?
Well, exactly. I don't know. Puncture it with my stilettos or something. But you don't get to be in situ and appreciating the enormity of the place until you are doing it live. And also you don't get to hear I didn't get to hear the band properly until I actually got into the middle. Then the sound system went down and I couldn't hear them, so I was making it up as I went along. It was it was so exciting. It was really wonderful.
Have you any more cup finals or the like lined up? Because they always seem to have, the really top ones now must have a top-of-the-range singer, don't they?
Well, I do seem to be a bit of a regular with the FA Cup, which I'm very, very happy to be, because I'm going to sing in the Cup final again this year at Wembley, which is it's going to be very special because it's Cardiff and Portsmouth, so I don't know who's going to win.
And what are you going to sing?
Well, I'll be singing, Catherine Jenkins is going to be with me, and she's going to look after the Welsh, the Cardiff lot, and I'm going to look after the Portsmouth lot, so I'll be singing the national anthem, and then together we'll be singing Abide With Me. And I can't tell you how excited I am. It's the biggest place I ever sing in. And there are 93,000 people going to be there. And then I think last year, because I did it last year, I was told there were 5 billion people watching, which is just, I can't go there, otherwise I'll never get through the door. It's just too scary. But I'm very excited.
Of course, Catherine's a mezzo-soprano, you're a soprano.
That's right, yes. So I dare say she'll be doing her national anthem a bit lower than mine. Well, actually, no, we'll probably do the same key and then I'll chuck in a few top notes. I won't be able to resist.
Well, now I saw you recently on television and you were helping to select the junior and senior school choirs throughout the United Kingdom. Something like that must give you a lot of pleasure, I would think. And how would you compare things, nowadays, really, to when you were starting out on those proverbial first rungs of the ladder?
Well, it is giving me a lot of pleasure now at this stage of my career that I'm asked to do things like that, to judge choir competitions, and that one was such a wonderful competition to judge, and great to see young people making such brilliant sounds together, because it really worries me and saddens me how little music there is in schools at the moment, how little support there is for music teaching. It absolutely has to be a part of the core curriculum. Every child in this country will listen to a piece of music today. You've only got to see them in the streets with their iPods and their, in their ears. Music matters enormously to children, and then to the adults that they become. And singing together and making music together, which is a natural consequence of their interest in it in the first place, is so good for the rest of their learning process. You learn to team build. You learn about yourself. You learn that you might be a leader. If you want to sing a solo, that says a lot about your character. And it's so good for maths, it's so good for languages. There's so many other subjects that learning to sing and to play instruments, of course, but singing particularly touches so many other subjects, and it is beyond me that it isn't given a higher priority in school.
So what do you look for chiefly then? What would be the thing? If they haven't got this, then they don't stand a chance in my points.
You mean if I'm judging them as in a competition?
Exactly.
I don't look into their background. I'm judging them entirely on the sound that I can hear.
Yes, but what in that sound must they have?
They have to have a love for the music. They have to have a passion for the words. For singers, the music begins really with the words. They have to need to communicate with the most beautiful sound they can possibly make. If they're singing in a choir, they have to be responsible for the sound as a whole, not just for their own sound. So they have to be listening like crazy. But what I'm looking for is the heart of the singer and the extent to which they can express their emotional heart, their soul through their sound. We're a conduit at the end of the day. When I stand on that stage, I'm just aware that there is a greater creative force out there that's channeled through me, and that's my job. That's why I'm on this earth. And it's the most wonderful feeling, and we can all feel that.
Well, is there remaining an ambition for an operatic role, shall we say, that you'd give your eye teeth to perform? I can't imagine there is, that there isn't something left that you haven't attempted.
There is actually. I would love to try some Richard Strauss. I would love to have a go at the marshalling. I think I could do a lovely marshalling. There are some lovely older women roles that I'd love to have a go at, and I think she's top of my list. I really would love to do that.
You have travelled, of course, the complete world, Lesley, and I really mean that. I could list off the countries here. Have you got a special place that you're always pleased to go back to? Or
Australia.
For some reason or other, Australia.
I love Australia. I think, again...
Are they very musical?
Oh, yes, and very enthusiastic. That's what I love about the Australians. They want to give anything a go. And if you've gone all that way to sing for them, they're so pleased. And again, I think, possibly the most satisfying moment I ever had was when I was making my debut at the Sydney Opera House in a gala concert of my own, which was sold out, and in the front row I'd been able to have my children and my husband, and we'd made a holiday of it, and they travelled with me, and it doesn't get better than that you can go to the other side of the world and visit a beautiful country, find that people like you there, and have your family with you.
Yeah. Your husband, of course, is a doctor, yes. And I quote here really that I believe you say that he brings home every festering illness possible on this earth, and unless you're lying sort of comatose with blood coming out of you, he's not really terribly interested in whether you're well or not. You know? I
think every partner of a doctor will say the same. You really do have to be, unconscious, covered in blood before they say, "Oh, well, you're not feeling very well then, dear." And he brings everything home from the surgery, and what he doesn't bring home from the surgery, the children bring home from the school playground. So I've had to, over the years, learn to protect myself from these illnesses. And sometimes, it means a separate bed. If he's got a cold, I'm sorry, but don't come near me. But when you do have time for relaxation and holidays, you do very active things. Yes, we're not good at sitting still, I'm afraid. Skiing. Yes. In fact, I'm nursing an injury here. I've just ruptured my ulnar collateral ligament, Geraldine. I've got that big lump there, look. Definitely, it's not a happy operation on that. No, but it won't stop. The reason it's bad is because when I did it, I didn't tell anybody. I just strapped it up and carried on skiing because I didn't want anybody to stop me skiing. But we do. We love walking. We love. My son's into mountain climbing in a big way. We love cycling. My daughter swims with our local swimming club 3 times a week. So yeah, there's a lot going on. Life's too short. Are the children interested in music? Oh yes, very much so. But I've not really pushed them to try and do it other than just for love, because actually at the end of the day that's the only reason to do music.
well, in conclusion, my guest today has been described as a down-to-earth northerner with a glorious voice, a singing whirlwind giving her fans the exciting ride that they want, and very much a natural communicator, just about the best ambassador for opera. Lesley Garrett, CB, may you continue to be the nation's favourite soprano, and thank you very much indeed for joining me on the Geraldine Jamieson interview this week.
My pleasure, thank you.